tastes like coffee.
All right. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TFTuesday Podcast. My name is Zill. It's great to have you all back here again today. I have been having a week, but you know what? We soldier on, and at least the weather is starting to get a little bit better in my neck of the woods. I hope we do not get a second surprise April snow, because that would be extremely not cash money, and I would be very upset. I'm joined by my illustrious co-host, k-libra. How are you doing, k-libra?
Doing okay. Have you repented to your weather lords?
Always.
Okay, good. Because maybe that's one of the reasons that the weather has actually gotten better. Not that you shouldn't repent to your weather lords regardless of the weather, you know? I mean, they're drunk on carbon,
weather is...
and you need to make sure that you do the right thing.
It's true. I mean, weather is always happening. It's just constantly happening at all times. Yeah. So, we have to be very cognizant of that.
And stop death spiral fascism.
Yes, that is also correct. Very important.
Yeah. But, keep soldiering on. Like, it's... tough weeks are sometimes the ones that can give us a lot of perspective. So I hope you've been getting some of that.
Oh, yeah, plenty of perspective. And one of the things that's definitely given me perspective is having to officially register the Patreon with the Canadian government, which means that people should continue to subscribe to it, because I'm a little gay business owner now, apparently. So I think that's really funny. And, everyone should continue to sign up to the Patreon and bolster it in that way, so that we can continue to have a little gay podcast.
Yeah, support your gay owners of gay things, If it's going to be capitalism, make sure to keep the rainbow on it. It's the least you can do.
I agree. But yeah, it's a really special episode today. I am delighted to have some past guests coming back today to talk about the wonderful world of visual novels, specifically the one that they've been creating. So I'd like to turn the floor over to the Cinnamon Switch team to introduce themselves.
Hello, I am Gunzil. I am the business boy / plot outliner / programmer / making anything else that needs to work person. And I use they them pronouns and he him pronouns.
Hell yeah.
And that's my thing.
It's very important.
Oh, I'm next. Hi, I'm K Dynamo. You can call me KD. I use he, him, they, them, doesn't matter. I am the lead artist of Coffee Buns, and I do most of the sprite work and a couple other things, but yeah, primarily sprites and character design.
Hell yeah.
Hi, I'm Mira, the Transfer Mistress. I am the CG artist on Coffee Buns and the sprite and CG artist on Cross Signals.
Hi, I'm Zoe S. Figueroa. I am the lead writer as well as kind of community manager and marketing for Cinnamon Switch generally.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much again, everyone, for coming back. It's a delight to have you all back, and I'm really excited to be talking about Coffee Buns today in particular. We had a chance to play through almost the most recent release. I know that I think 0.7 actually just came out, so I don't have too much to say on the new additions there, but playing through the almost most recent update had been a lot of fun to see, especially in terms of the evolutions in the kind of Mice Tea universe broadly, and kind of taking a lot of things to interesting and sometimes unexpected trajectories. But maybe we can start at the beginning. I was curious to know what kind of sparked the idea for Coffee Buns, and if it was kind of a natural progression of Mice Tea that was always kind of envisioned, or if it was a new idea that just naturally kind of slotted into the universe that had already been created.
The joke answer to that is that I didn't get the chance to draw enough bunny suits in Mice Tea, so we needed to follow up at the end of the game. But I'll let Gunzel take it away with the actual reason.
Yeah, the Coffee Buns lore. So let me think here. There were several factors that led to it. The primary one was as we were wrapping on Mice Tea, I hit this point where, like, after we had spent all this time building this story with all these characters, I myself did not feel like represented within that plot. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things where, like, there were like little hints of things where I'm like, oh, maybe this will kind of lead to something where I feel represented, and then it didn't really. So when we finished Mice Tea, I was like, it would be really great if we could have a story about like someone that grapples with gender, and the conclusion isn't that they are a trans woman and they fully transition and that's it. I would love something where it's more ambiguous, there's more struggle to it, and like it's something where they have to kind of like learn that like, okay, maybe they like exist outside of the gender binary, and it's something where something where you don't have to fit into a specific slot. You can kind of forge your own path. So that was kind of the core spark. The secondary item was I went, wow, we spent all this time making all these assets for Mice Tea. It would be great if we could get some more value out of them. We had all these beautiful backgrounds that Hart drew. We had bespoke NPC sprites for there's 20 plus sprites for just bit characters, and I'm there's a lot of generic assets and a lot of stuff set up where I'm we could definitely pump out another story with new characters and use all this foundation to make it a lot less costly than Mice Tea was.
The Majora's Mask, if you will.
And I think, what was it? The third thing was just I do remember very early on in Mice Tea, someone's the sequel should be called Coffee Buns. And I was that's another animal and food pun / drink pun. I will put that in my pocket. And this is when we took it out of the pocket. That's kind of... Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to joke that this is the Majora's Mask to our Ocarina of Time of Mice Tea.
Yeah. I do think in general, one thing I always noticed with a lot of AAA studios and a lot of other studios is they'd it felt like game sequels took on one of two forms, and one form is we took all of this work we did to build all these systems, threw in the trash, and redid it again for a new console generation, and the other one is we are doing the laziest, cheapest iteration possible. We're using as much as possible. And I feel we have this kind of... I really feel we have this nice middle ground that does kind of feel like that Majora's Mask sequel type thing, where it's trying to take a lot of existing stuff we have, but putting in enough effort to try and transform it into something that feels new, but at the same time still a little bit familiar, because it's the same setting, and there's a lot of callbacks to Mice Tea.
Lazy is a very relative term for everything you have to do, especially for a game like that, for any game really. It's hard to think of actual lazy examples. So I don't know. I guess it just doesn't feel fair to even hear you describe it as lazy. I think it's a good opportunity that you've taken to have all the stuff that you feel you put a lot of love into and make it into something new and to explore something that is kind of personal, but it's also very interesting because what you said earlier about the gender struggle, that was really good.
Yeah, no, I wanted to echo that point in particular because when I was reading Mice Tea, I was very much enjoying it. I loved it. It was fantastic. I definitely didn't necessarily see myself fit into the story as much, but I definitely relate a lot more to the story that's being told in Coffee Buns. So that was very much something that I was really excited to see. And also, I would say that one of the nice things about Coffee Buns, at least in terms of how it's been playing out so far, is it very much feels like a cousin to Mice Tea. And I feel that's kind of that middle ground that you're kind of aiming for, in the sense that there's connections, but it's also its own thing. And there's cute callbacks, but it still is... You're able to actually play it on its own, even if you haven't played Mice Tea, which I think is a testament to the world building itself in terms of feeling fully realized.
Oh yeah, I got plenty to say about all that stuff, but we should try to go a little bit in order.
Yeah, of course. I guess, because there's so much overlap in terms of, the assets involved and building up the game and the lore and all that stuff. How did you kind of settle on kind of the team structure for this one? Because I know obviously there's also the parallel other game that's being developed at the same time. So I was curious how you kind of settled on how you were going to kind of approach making this one while another one was also in production.
I mean, we pretty much brought the whole team back for this one. I think the only thing that's slightly different is just kind of how often and kind of the thoroughness with which we're doing kind of like story updates and keeping everybody on the same page. It's the same team, but I think we're just kind of more experienced and more kind of capable of coordinating the way that we think we should.
Yeah, I know some of our collaborators, they're like, all right, you get this many more, and that's it. And we're like, okay, thank you. It's like, our music guy is like, all right, you have this many more. But also, like, I think we for our music person, we gave him also a decent amount of, like, leeway in terms of timing because he has other stuff going on.
Yeah.
We're very grateful that everyone was able to continue contributing because it's like everyone that worked on the game made it what it was.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely.
You're stuck with me.
We're glad to be stuck with you, I think is the right way of putting it. But no, that does make sense. I do remember in particular when we chatted last time about the music guy, how you guys actually discovered him, which I thought was an incredible story. And I'm so glad that he decided to come back to do some more because he does some amazing work with tracks. I guess then also in terms of like the story, so I mean, you talked a little bit about how you kind of came up with the kind of nugget for what would become Coffee Buns. When it came to developing some of the kind of individual, I don't want to call it like individual route companions because that's not quite the right way of putting it, but I was curious as to if you came up with the kind of like core of each of the kind of companions, I'll just call them for now, in terms of putting them into the story, or if those kind of evolved naturally once you started actually developing Leo's story.
Well, I guess for this story that we're doing this time is unlike Mice Tea, where they're, along with Margaret, there's a lot of, development and kind of goals for the side characters, Julie learning to be open up to relationships, Felicia's, gender journey, Gavin being open about his interests and likes and stuff. This is a lot more focused on kind of Leo and his journey. So the side characters in this one are kind of more kind of meant to be foils to his journey, kind of like contrasting, his story and his kind of growth against these kind of different either like touchstones or exemplars and how they differ from his situation. I think, well, one character was actually repurposed somewhat from a DLC we were contemplating for Mice Tea. It was going to be the Wolf MILF DLC. And we just kind of migrated her over to Coffee Buns and just tinkered with her character a little bit.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely will say I noticed the kind of foil elements. And we'll get into it more, I think, a little bit later in the episode. But I definitely think it's interesting how with each of the kind of individual companions, so to speak, they're, like you said, they're going through their own journeys. And they also definitely kind of nudge Leo in certain directions depending on what sort of combinations you're picking. At least that's what it feels like to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking out of hand there, but it definitely feels like there's an element of nudging potentially in one direction or the other that they're helping to kind of contextualize for Leo.
Mm-hmm. Basically, the idea is that there's lots of kind of models for what people might assume Leo could be, and kind of in putting him in juxtaposition with those, it kind of clarifies, over the course of the story, which is still in development, but it's meant to kind of clarify his position in kind of relation to these kind of other, I guess, possibilities for what Leo could be.
Yeah. No, I think that totally makes sense.
So I was enjoying that people seem to have like a different, I guess, outlook on like what would probably be best for Leo, but not even what's like best really is what's the right thing to say. Just like how to help, and it's like his boss and his coworker. They're just there to be like, well, hey, what could we do for you? In the meantime, Naomi's very clearly like, I have this very direct approach to take with you, and that's one of the things that also makes me want to replay it, because I'd want to see exactly how the others lean into what they think would help Leo out the most.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of nuances in each one. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Naomi being the like ideal like trans big sister type archetype, I think it's fun with her because I think a lot of where she came from was like some of the whole like me experiencing a lot of like enthusiasm people would have over like, oh, this person's questioning their gender. Clearly that means they are a trans woman and I'm going to make all these assumptions about them like and like skip all these steps because I'm so enthusiastic about this. But that's kind of like a lot of what Naomi models. But she is fun because she's like, I simultaneously want to hug and strangle her. It's like she is amazing, and also she needs to please calm down and drink some water.
I'm so glad that I was not off base when I was getting that impression, because that it very much felt like it was coming from a place of like genuine like good place, but also like from a personal experience, because I have run into that kind of person before too in my own gender exploration, and so I felt extremely validated to see that in the story. And we'll talk about it more, but I have a lot to say about that. So I'm really glad that she's in the story because I think she is such a fascinating character, honestly. I know, of course, we kind of mentioned that, you know, obviously everyone's kind of come back. So from a visual perspective, there's a lot of coherence between Iced Tea and Coffee Buns. I was curious if the actual like visual style and like creation of the art influenced the shape or direction of the story at all as well.
After Iced Tea, I certainly had a lot more experience with sort of developing our characters and, you know, making appealing character designs. And one of the things that sort of, I guess, like, stands out to me is sort of like how Leo and their counterpart, that we'll probably just call Bonnie for now because that's the developer name for them.
Can I actually ask, in your playthroughs, what's Leo's fem name?
Oh, that's right.
Oh, so when I did it the first time, oh my gosh. Because I ended up playing all three, so I've gotten all three of the names, and now I'm forgetting. The one I got first was, oh my dear God. Which one is the name he gets when he goes with, oh my God. Wow, I'm having a brain fart right now.
No worries,
Coworker's
you can edit
name
it
I'm
out.
forgetting.
Ash.
Yeah.
Then she
Naomi.
appoints the name Debbie.
Yeah.
Yes, it's Debbie. That's the one that I got first, which I thought was very funny because then we find out why, and I was like, oh, that's really cute. But yeah, it was Debbie that was the first one that I got.
Anyway, so part of the whole idea behind Leo's whole thing is that they don't know what they want. They're very unsure of themselves.
Yes.
They play their cards close to their chest. They don't want to be very open. I wanted to mirror that in their appearance. They have just like the single eye sort of thing, and then I mirror it for their femme form, which works really well, thankfully. And we have plans for how we're going to visually perhaps change that as the story develops. It was I'm rambling now. I don't know where to go from here.
I'll add, because the question was asked also, I got Bella. So
okay.
I thought Bella was like cheeky, but you know, it is cute.
It was a good name. They're all good names, honestly, in my opinion.
I think you'd have to really struggle to give a bad name. So what would a bad name be? What would be a name that would just make you wince? You do it on purpose to hurt yourself if you were to give it to him.
I mean, that's part of the reason we like Lampshade Bonnie, because it's so on the nose because of that.
I was about to say.
Like, we were calling her Bonnie like internally, and then we're like, that's kind of which is why like
cringe.
each character's like, really you're going with that?
Yeah.
If we named her Vriska, that'd be bad.
Named her who?
Vriska.
Oh,
Yeah, Vriska. Yeah, name her
God.
Vriska Sanskrit or whatever.
Yeah,
Oh my
there you
gosh.
go. Now you're hitting the mark.
Zoe, I thought you didn't know anything about Homestuck.
What's Homestuck?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I know obviously as well that the Patreon has helped kind of support the VN's development, and obviously that was a big part of Mice T's development too. I was curious if the Patreon itself kind of has fed into your development strategy in perhaps like a different way from how it fed into Mice T, or if there are any lessons you kind of took from the first time around that have helped kind of like facilitate any sort of nudging things in certain directions at all, or if it's completely hands-off and independent.
I think the biggest change between Mice Tea and Coffee Buns for Patreon, which has honestly been kind of nice, is that for Mice Tea we did monthly updates. It was like every update, whatever we did, we had some kind of significant content update every month. I think we only missed like 1 month due to like just a lot of circumstances. We're very, very consistent and had that grow. And when we had like a lull after Mice Tea was done, and we had like a drop, but we still had people supporting us in the interim, which was nice. But once we started up Coffee Buns and Cross Signals, we've been alternating between the two game updates, which like depending on which team members are working on which games, like basically gives them a little more leeway for like how long it takes for them to work on stuff. So it's like Zoe has more time for writing if it's like more of a 2-month cadence, like CG and sprite work and stuff like that. I double fist both. I'm a workaholic. But it's been nice to see that, because I think we were unsure how double fisting projects would work and if like our patrons would support that, and we like set up tiers for both of the games. And I think like a majority of them are just like, just give me whatever you got, and like I'll happily, consume updates and enjoy your work.
I would hazard
so it's
a
just
guess.
been.
I was just gonna say I would hazard a guess that a lot of our patrons are patrons for both games. That they're at the tier that gets them whatever they want, whatever we have.
Yeah. So it's just always nice to kind of see that it's like less of a, I need you to make content or very specific content for me to give you my money. And it's more of a like, we have built up enough of a relationship with our audience, and we've built up enough of a brand where people are willing to like give us money, and then we get to continue working on stuff. So, I mean, that's pretty much all that's the majority of what the strategy is just work on stuff and then enjoy whatever financial incentives that we're rewarded with.
Yeah.
That's great, actually, because I constantly think of people who start something that gets very popular and then they want to branch out and just do other things, because few people ever want to just, touch on and twist like pretty much the same idea. And then it really feels bad when somebody's trying to be ambitious or really put their heart into something else they care about, and for people to just be kind of like, I don't know, it's not the same thing. That's not what I came here for. So it's good. It's really good.
Yeah.
And to be fair, it's all within the same, like, I think my biggest concern with cross signals that, because that is explicitly that is not furry. It is only body swap. That like,
Yes.
There'd be a big divide there, but there really wasn't too much. Like there are like people that are like, I am just here for cute furry characters, and that's great, and we have a patron tier for them.
Yeah, I've frequently said that I'm very happy with, I'm very happy with the amount of people that come to our server and are just like, even if they came for Mice T, they're just as enthusiastic about cross signals, because they don't necessarily care that it's not a furry game. They care about the fact that the writing and the art are the same level of excellence that they've already experienced.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, absolutely. And that's so good to hear, because it really does matter. And I think that the fact that it's an audience that shows up for different kinds of stories, even when they may not necessarily be in their original wheelhouse, is really validating.
Yeah, I think some people have been like actually surprised by how much they have, enjoyed something that's, a bit of a departure from Ice-T. And also I think just leaving the the tiers so close to each other, it's not a very big ask to spend another $3 to get access to both. And I think that's enticed people to, take a look when maybe they wouldn't have. It was like, twice the price or something.
Yeah.
Plus, we can't discount. Absolutely. We can't discount all of the fun conversations that people like to have of what the Mice Tea and the Cross Signals universe are completely separate from each other. But what if? And then, it creates some interplay there too.
Well, Brewed keeps sticking little
potential for crossover
references in there.
Yeah, no, we definitely still have references to Mice Tea and Cross Signals, but they're not the same. Like New Greenshire does not exist within Cross Signals.
That's because New Greenshire is fake, and Cross Signals is just in normal ass cities.
You didn't have to come up with a unique knockoff city for it, so to speak.
No, just a knockoff university.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, though. And that opens up for a guest character DLC until the fan project fighting game comes out too. That's what the game needs. It needs to go like the route of Tsukihime, and then you'll get to see what everybody's fighting style is like, and you get to put all the backgrounds and all the supers and everything. Actually, it could be like Bloody Roar, but a little but cuter. That's what it could be like. Yeah.
I'll just take all the character. I'll just take all the character sprites and upload all their constituent parts to some folder somewhere, and people can just throw them into the Mugen and have fun with it.
Yeah. Bloody mouse noises.
Yeah. The nice thing is that half of the characters already have their Midnight Bliss form.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if that's the move. Actually, I think it'd be funny if that would be Naomi's level 3. That would be pretty funny.
She trans as your gender.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then sucks your life dry. That's how Midnight Bliss works. Giselle doesn't know this. Midnight Bliss is a real move from Darkstalkers. One of the characters has it.
Mm-hmm.
Will if you're already a chick, you'll be dolled up in like a dress and made extra pretty, or an adult if you're not quite old enough or whatever. But yeah, you'll either be like made up into a babe, and then he'll like suck you dry. But if you're a man, he'll turn you into a woman and suck you dry. It's very funny.
That's amazing.
I'm learning new things every day.
Yeah, someone had a very specific interest and managed to get budget for every character in the game, which not surprising.
So we agree that's Danny's ult, right?
Oh yeah,
like it has to be.
The TF freak of Cross Signals. We definitely have like hypothetical April Fools planned for like, all right, we're gonna make all the Cross Signals characters furries, or we might do like body swap with Coffee Buns characters or something. So it'll be fun when that arises. There's definitely a challenge, like we did in April Fools last year, for Mice Tea as like a bonus thing.
It was really good.
That was like, I fell into a fervor. That's the thing where like, that was gifted. My brain would not let me stop thinking about it until it was created, basically. But that was one of those things where it's like, why are we putting this much work into this thing that's free? Well, I really want it to exist, sort of thing. But the one thing I do think about with like the Patreon and like the amount of Slack we have is just like how much Slack we have for like little bonus projects or other things, or like branching out beyond like, here's the content treadmill. Once a month, we get off the content treadmill and we give you your yummy TFTG content. Though I think, as I've mentioned before, I think our fans like would show us enough grace that especially if we're like, we're working on a thing, we'll let you know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely like things to weigh with that, and just like trying to be very careful about when you deploy the hiatus or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
I would like to say though that just real quick that if why are you doing this for free? The people that like what you do deeply appreciate the free stuff like every single time, because even Vampire Survivor did like a big crossover DLC like just this past week, and they even went into explaining why they did it, which is its own thing. But yeah, it's really cool, and it all comes down to like, I really love this thing, and I really wanted it to be a part of it, and I wanted to make it as easy as possible, and here it is, guys. And I love it when people get to do that kind of stuff, because that's when you really get the goodness out of creators.
Yeah. Well, speaking of goodness, I wanted to get a little bit into the actual gender exploration within Coffee Buns, because it's obviously very much a central theme, and I think is telling a very unique story, kind of showcasing Leo's navigation through it. And there's a lot to like dig in, but I guess I'm curious to know how you kind of settled on how the current gender progression in the story has been going. Like having it proceed in fits and bursts of individual stages was like a really interesting kind of story choice, in my opinion. And so I was curious as to how you kind of came up with that kind of conceptualization of it.
Yeah. So, as a person with a bit more of a question mark gender, one thing I always found to be a missed opportunity in a lot of TG media was having a character go like, especially within just like the trans femme circle of just like, I am going all the way girl. I am all the way girl. That's it. All right.
Yeah.
Moving on. And it's something where like, I think there's a lot of interesting intermediate stages and a lot of kind of mixing and matching of like body type, that I think is fun to explore. So it's nice kind of having that where it's like, okay, well, you know, Leo's a guy. Well, now he's a guy with boobs. Well, now he's a guy with boobs and hips. And just kind of like going through that. I think the other thing is that we wanted to have more of a slow burn. I feel like if it went too fast, then that kind of like, I don't know. It just, I think the way the story was paced and the way we wanted to like kind of allow for a certain amount of like push and pull, with the mechanics kind of required more of a slow burn where you'd be in these like intermediate stages.
Right.
Which also are just like very interesting and then allow us to like approach things like, okay, well, how about binding? How about like trying to hide these changes from people? A lot of things that I feel like were kind of planned or like thought of for Mice T, and then it's like, wow, all these intermediate sprite forms and TF forms are a bunch of work. She's a mouse. But like, I think also just like Coffee Buns, I think like the intermediate gender stuff, I like for me is like a lot more interesting, a lot more gratifying, than like the intermediate furry stuff, because it's like there's a lot more interesting implications to like, I am a guy and I have boobs. What am I? That are kind of able to explore. That said, again, there hits a certain level. It's like, okay, we only want to draw so many sprite variations. You're a fucking girl now. Go be girled. So, which is kind of the nice like kind of midpoint of like, all right, so now you are fully femme. Like, how do you navigate this? Like, what does this mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is that like a lot of Leo's kind of assumptions or feelings about gender are tied up in fashion, and there's a lot about like, you know, fitting clothes to your body, and if you're kind of in between kind of the expected binary, like how do you work around that? How do you accommodate that with what you want to do?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I know how much Katie loves designing different outfits, so I figured that plays into it as well a little bit.
I love it. I mean, I definitely get a lot of help from the rest of the team. I certainly would not be as creative as, you know, to say that, oh, I've designed everyone's outfit or like, you know, personally picked it out, because that's certainly not true. But I certainly like drawing fun, different outfits. And Leo's body changes and other circumstances in the story give me a lot of option to do that.
Yeah, I'm glad to know that. You know what the funny thing is? I haven't really had any kind of like gender questions about myself or anything like that. But over the years, one of the things I was able to relate to was looking at women's clothing and being like, damn, I wish I could get something kind of like that. That being, I have learned, there are two general rules I have toward clothing. Guys' clothes are boring as fuck, but they are perfectly functional. Women's clothing is varied and interesting, but it is shit quality. It's just made to be looked at, never used, never really enjoyed, aside from what you can put out toward people. And I find that so deeply fucking frustrating. So there he is looking at all the stuff and being like, oh, look at that, the contours and the way it shows this off and stuff like that. And, you know, I'll piss whoever the fuck off, including if you're into call. I fucking hate suits. I hate guys' suits. And I'm like, that's the pinnacle of men's fashion, a fucking business suit. You know, women get to wear all these fucking things, and, you know, they get colors, they get patterns, they get cuts of, like, different kinds, and they can accentuate their fucking body. But guys, they don't get shit. So I'm looking at Leo and him being like, oh, yeah, I've always appreciated this and that. I'm like, you know what? I get it. I do get it. It fucking sucks, though. I'm thinking about him trying all the different women's clothing on. I'm like, you're going to find out that you don't have pockets, that the shit is paper thin, it will wear away, it's not meant to flex. Fuck this shit, I hate it. I get so angry.
I fucking love clothes, so...
Listen.
Oh, good
No.
thing. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You basically just, like, as someone that's thrifted a lot, there's definitely there are higher highs and lower lows.
Yeah.
Is a good way to put it.
I'm sure. I'm not a clothing aficionado of any kind, but I've definitely built a taste on what I like and what I know I like, which is why I wear stuff like this. And I'm looking for more every time. But yeah, it's great. It's great to see somebody who is looking at clothing and be like, you know what? This isn't all about me, but this I kind of get.
Yeah, but as long as we're on a side about clothes, like I've definitely experimented with wearing different types of clothing, and I've just found that like I don't like. First of all, I'm very much like you, Libra. I don't really question my gender identity that much.
Yeah.
But like I've just been curious about like what is it like to wear different types of clothes, and I've just come to the conclusion that I don't want to see me in different types of clothes. I want to see other people in these clothes. So
Interesting. You know, that's the interesting thing to put, because you know, we've even like mentioned and agreed that like clothing is its own kind of transformation. And I forgot where it came up recently, but it's something like the clothes you wear will make you feel a certain way, present a certain way. Oh yeah, I was actually hearing it through like another stream. That's right. But like you know, when you wear clothing, you want to express something about yourself, which is what I have discovered like in my much more recent years. So Leo exploring with clothing and expressing these things, and it's just like, yes, you want to embody the things that you find beautiful. And it's like another discussion I had that it kind of blends into. It's just like, I want that and want to be that at the same time. And so I feel like Leo has a bit of both going on, but of course the story's not done yet. But that's what I was getting echoes of, in addition to like the clothing and the expression and the appreciation, stuff like that.
Yeah. It's really good.
I definitely feel like as a person born male forced into a lot of male fashion, it was something where it felt like I was not able to express myself sufficiently within that area, and it was something where it kind of made me, I had very low self-confidence, just didn't feel very good. And it was something where like once I started branching onto like different cuts of clothing, different patterns, like wearing dresses, and like things like that, like playing with makeup, it like allowed me to like find the self-expression that I wanted, and then I was able to kind of like feel confident and like kind of feel comfortable. It's like those are the sorts of things that they're kind of being echoed a bit within the story.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I will echo that point on the makeup front. I mean, mine leans towards animalistic, I guess, but I really felt that once I was able to kind of get a handle on that sort of external self-expression, it did wonders for like my mental health and like how I was navigating the world. So I can only I can't underline that enough, is what I'm saying. I completely echo that.
Yeah, real good shit.
Yeah, and you know, I know that obviously Leo is still very much like still struggling with what they may end up being, just to go back to his journey for a second. And one of the things that struck me is that at first he very much didn't want to be undergoing anything at all, which obviously was somewhat at odds with the story that he was finding himself in. And I think in some of the routes, he's become a lot more comfortable with the idea of not being strictly like a guy, but in others, he's kind of like maybe a bit further behind or still like trying to suss that out. And so I was curious how, from like a storytelling perspective, you're balancing that contrast in progression of attitude so far.
Well, at this kind of point in what the story is, like what's available, which, isn't the full story, Leo is a bit kind of girl-pilled at the moment, really kind of leaning into it, enjoying it. In this most recent update, we had a scene with Roman that I think kind of clarified a lot of what Leo was feeling at the beginning. It was very much the situation where he didn't want people to think of him a certain way. It's not so much that he didn't enjoy being it or experiencing. It's just that like he didn't want people to, think what they were going to think about him, being more feminine. And so there is going to be a kind of particular singular sort of like conclusion that Leo comes to. It's just kind of more like, who's accompanying him and offering, perspectives along the way.
Right. Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense. I think, like you kind of established at the beginning, I think like the foils are definitely a good way of showing the kind of range of where he's been kind of like journeying through. And I guess that kind of answered to some degree my follow-up question was if you think there'll like be a set gender identity at the end for them, or if it was going to differ on like the paths that you chose.
Yeah, that's locked in. There's a set identity at the end, and we'll see what it is. Conversely, within cross signals, I am undergoing I'm adding choices so that you can accumulate trans points. So in that game, your gender identity will change or will be different, depending on like how you decide to have the main character feel about certain things.
Yeah. No, that's really fascinating to me. And I think it's really interesting that sort of end point for Leo has already been kind of set in advance, because I think people will be guessing until the end. Genuinely, I think it's going to be really interesting to see it kind of play out.
Mm-hmm. It's a bit more of kind of like traditional dating sim in that sense, where you're kind of like accruing quote unquote points and just kind of like who you're spending your time with. If you go out with Yukiko after math class or whatever.
In this case, it's less that the player's choice influences the outcome so much as the player's choice. Well, I mean, there will still be things in the outcome that differ, but they won't be his gender identity. The player choice is mostly focused on seeing the journey that they take to get there.
Always go out with Yukiko after math class, for the record. Yukiko's great.
Is that a Persona thing?
It's a Persona thing.
I also didn't get that reference, don't worry.
It's Persona 4 specifically.
Okay. I don't know if I'll ever play a Persona game, at least to completion.
I'll force you to at some point.
Don't will worry. You? It better be good.
I will.
Because I will complain.
Don't worry.
And I might break your heart and piss you off.
That's okay.
Bust out Daggerfall or something?
Anyways.
All right, well then, if you make me play like a 40-plus hour JRPG, I am going to make you play something in return. Because if you don't, we're not going to be friends anymore. You understand that, right?
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, it better be fine.
On the long list of hypothetical projects, one of them is definitely Queersona, where one thing that frustrated me about Persona, especially Persona 4, was that there were a couple characters that had arcs where they're gender nonconforming, and at the end they just don't address it.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, what if... and the thing is, those games are about like finding your like truth and being true to yourself. I'm like, wow, you know what that has a lot of in common with gender journeys.
Yeah.
So,
no, I
being queer.
I have a lot of thoughts on Persona 4, which I will not get into on this podcast. But I agree with you. That always struck me as a bit strange, and I was always very frustrated with that element. So
I just want more monster people in those things. I gotta be like that humanoid. Fucking bullshit.
Yeah. Well, one thing that definitely kind of stood out with kind of the different kind of, like you said, like almost like dating sim, like accruing points, spending time with different people. Each one of them definitely has their own either like level of encouragement or gentle guidance that's being given. And it's definitely kind of affecting Leo's character arc. And I know they're supposed to function kind of as foils, but when it comes to how their attitudes are towards Leo's journey, be it like, being more brash and teasing or being supportive or like pushing like what you think that he might end up being, how did you kind of square those attitudes against Leo's overall arc?
I guess I'd say that I think that they're just kind of all just different tools that are sort of used within the narrative to kind of get to relatively the same place. Since it is kind of a dating sim sort of construction, a bit of it is just like, oh, like what kind of flavor do you want as you go on this journey? Like, do you want that kind of like teasy, a little bit mean, goth punk girl who's gonna get under your skin, or do you want the fun, bubbly cottagecore girl? So some of it is just like, since it is a visual novel, adding a bit of kind of player choice in there to kind of help them get the story that they want. And part of it is just going back to that idea of, there's lots of different ways you can get to the, same conclusion, just with different flavors of inputs.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, when it comes to looking ahead into the future, obviously when the game is finished, I'm not asking for any spoilers or anything, but I'm curious if there's any sort of like takeaways that you hope people have related to gender identity, that you hope people will have coming out of playing the VN.
There is more to gender than the binary, I suppose, is probably the biggest thing. Like, gender is not black and white.
Gender's
And it's
fucking
not
fake.
It really, yeah, no, that's the I can very much echo that, is that gender's fake. Is someone who has frequently said before, like, I don't want any of this gender business. Get it out. I don't care about gender.
Gender is complicated because there is a paradox, because when it comes to transgenderness, it both breaks and reinforces the binary in some ways. Because
depending on the type.
Well, yes, depending on the type, but like that's why I said it's a paradox. It breaks it because it's just like, okay, it's fluid. You can move like between these two like extreme points, and anywhere in between is completely okay. At least it should be. But it's completely okay. And like. But if you say it's fake, then it's not really, because it matters a very certain way to different kind of people who have different expectations and visions of how they ought to be and who they are. So so the thing I really appreciate the most is the ambiguity of it. I don't have any kind of problem or really kind of look to label people immediately. It's just like, well, you got like the curves and the tits and you got the whatever, but you're like I'm still a guy. I don't want to be this or that, which is why like I feel bad for Leo in a number of instances where it's just like, look, I just don't get it yet. I don't get it. It's just like, oh, you I know you don't get it now, but you will soon. And I'm just like, leave him the fuck alone. It's like why? You're kind of that's like one of the points that gave me like a ton of fucking feelings, because it's like gender is fake, but you really want like a particular outcome which like solidifies it. So that's why it's a paradox. It can be a very complicated, like it's a complicated social phenomenon. So it's real in one respect, that we all make it very important. And then it's also malleable. I think the thing I'm trying to say is like, it's not that gender isn't so much as fake as it is like it's completely malleable. That's what I wish, like that's kind of what I wish people would like really recognize. It's why I wear lotus pants. And I also realize, again, women's clothing is really shit because I like lotus pants, but they're not cut for people like me, damn it.
Yeah, I think, if there's any, like, primary takeaway, it's that, like, you're allowed to have a sense of play and a sense of exploration without a expected outcome, and just being able to try things that you like and see, or just try things and see what you like and what you don't like, and just kind of exist in that space without immediately having to come to like a conclusion or having that like somehow be a judgment on your character in some way.
Yeah, you should be able to exist in your own sort of equilibrium and not have to worry about what other people expect you to. It was
and it took me a long time to find that mentality, and that was what eventually allowed me to kind of find myself, because I again would look at all these people that are like, here's my 14-step plan to be the most beautiful trans woman ever, and I'm like, I don't like. I want to play on the same playground, but I don't want to do these specific things in this order with this specific outcome.
Yeah, and you shouldn't have to. Nobody should. I was playing the game as well with a partner of mine, and they were kind of telling me how in the trans circles that they've been in and around, that there happens to actually be a lot of pressure apparently that can come up with people just like very much asserting like, yeah, this is where you're going, this is where you're going. I'm like, is it really more common than I guess I would have expected? And I know it's anecdotal, but for somebody else to just be like, oh yeah, I've seen this before, I'm like, holy shit, that's pretty wild to me.
Yeah, I would say primarily in internet circles. But also I feel like when I entered a lot of like more of in-person stuff, I kind of had more of an idea of what I was doing and what I wanted.
I feel like in-person circles are a lot more chill about that kind of stuff, but also conversely, a lot of the times when people finally work up the courage to do those kinds of things in person, they've already kind of settled on something anyway, so it's a bit harder to means test, I guess, in a weird way.
Yeah. One of my favorite exchanges I had with a friend was, I think I mentioned something effective like, oh yeah, this thing would be nice, but yeah, like I don't know if I'd ever want to like do HRT or use estrogen. And she's like, why wouldn't you want to do estrogen? And then there's a beat, and she's like, oh right, you're one of those N beats.
What the fuck?
And I thought it was very funny, and it was like a playful thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope so.
Yeah, it was meant to be in jest.
Yeah. I fucking hope so. We're gonna get like really angry.
No, I understand that in jest though. Well, I did want to get into a little bit of the cast broadly too, because we've kind of talked a little bit on and off about kind of each of them in broad strokes. But as I kind of alluded to earlier, I think one really big strength in my mind is the cast itself, and each of them have pretty clear goals and motivations. I think we talked a little bit about where some of the inspirations came from, but when it came to like building the archetypes and the kind of backstories in particular, I'd be curious to hear a little bit more, because again, I know they're kind of foil related, but their backgrounds individually also feel super rich, which I thought was really nice.
There's a good amount of like brainstorming general ideas. Mm-hmm. I feel like there's kind of two stages, which is we had the like brainstorming the general, like a character's deal. So there are parts of like, what's Ash's deal? And we're like, this, and this. And they're like kind of a goth punk. And also, I'm like, I want femboy Ash. I need femboys. And things like that. So it was a lot of like high level notes. It's like Roman, we're like, oh, he should be kind of like this kind of like very friendly himbo, should like be very athletic and have all these kinds of, be kind of that, I think like literally an otter but in the gay circle of like more built than a twink and not hairy like a bear.
I love him.
And then like, I mean,
actually, Mira, I think you were doing some of the kind of initial kind of character design. Do you kind of recall what you were trying to like feel out when you were kind of first doing the first few Naomis and Ashes and such, before they even had those names?
Well, it's embarrassing, but for Roman, I was just like, okay, Otter Kamina.
Oh yeah, we're like make him Kamina flavored. Body type.
I was really just having fun with it, to be honest. Most of Boss was recycled from when I was trying to get y'all to notice me and was trying to make my own Mice T fan game. And I was like, I have this character that's going to be the boss, and she's going to be a wolf. And then y'all really liked the design, so we brought her back for Coffee Buns. And then Naomi was just, she was just fun to draw. She was just cute.
Just popped into existence.
And then,
fully formed.
Popped. No, not fully formed, because KD took it and ran. I was just the one who provided the adorable blueprint of Naomi.
Yeah.
There was a sketch I remember that was just Naomi going, "You let your mommy pick your gender." Oh, that's what I based. Sorry.
I think
sorry.
another
I'm so
one
sorry.
was like,
That's what I based her
pronounce...
off of. The deer in what's her name in Mice T, the streamer route. Yeah, Ayala. I thought it would be fun if she had like a sister. So one of the sketches was, my sister's a streamer. She knows these things.
I think you had one little like concept sketch where she was saying like, it's pronounced blowhigh.
I think I did. I definitely leaned into the fucking Reddit trans kind of meme culture, I guess. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but that was
I think for Naomi it's perfect.
Yeah. It's a good characterization,
I'd
I would say.
Once we got those bases figured out, Zoe then did the Zoe thing of figuring out what each character's like background is and then like really digging into that. So it's like Roman is Puerto Rican because we have a Puerto Rican friend and can like...
Yeah, I just want to say that I think it's very fun how I was able to peg that simply from the food. It's just like, it's a Puerto Rican dish. And then he said aguadilla, and I'm like, I lived next to aguadilla and been there a bunch. And he described the beaches. I'm like, yeah, that's actually completely true. So that was great.
Yeah.
It's like a Zoe superpower. Or like boss is Turkish, so it's like here's all her like Turkish isms and like sprinkling in her own like language stuff. I think like Ash is like Jewish, and there's like a line there's a line where she says something like, "Don't worry, rabbits aren't kosher."
I did notice that.
But there's just a lot of like little things that we kind of like get sprinkled in there, and it just adds that richness. It's that seasoning of diversity.
Yeah, no, I think the best part about that is that the writing isn't very blunt about a lot of the stuff. Like, you have to pick it up from those little clues that we give you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There was no
absolutely.
They make them feel more like real people.
Yeah.
There was no need to put a bullhorn to anything and see, this one comes from here in the world. Yeah.
No, it felt very integrated, which I always appreciated. And I think that sprinkling is like you said, it adds that richness, and it really, I think, makes the characters feel that much more grounded within the stories that are being told.
Yeah, when I was saying that, it gave me a taste for visual novels because, the characters were incredibly strong, and I like putting little voices and tones and cadences to them. And since it felt really easy to do with them, I was just like, this is great. And I kind of want to like keep going more. But it was funny because like for Roman, I had given him like an accent I got from like a character from another game. So every time he was talking, it was kind of like this, and shit like that.
Yeah. I gotta say that, and I know we've talked about it a little bit already, but I really want to get into it. Like, Naomi's a character that really struck me, particularly as I read through all three of the routes. And like, she is very well intentioned. She very much, as you kind of mentioned before, Gunzil, like there's a very particular type of person who can sometimes perhaps go a bit too far in terms of like pushing a certain vision for someone. And I've, as someone who's encountered that in real life as part of my own gender journey, it just really resonated with me. And it sounds like there were some like personal experiences that helped to build that up. But I was curious to know, at least when it came to handling her story and how she appears in when she is the direct companion versus outside of that, like developing her character, how the different perspectives you can come at with her based on like whether you've selected or not, how that was kind of developed and integrated based off of experiences.
It's kind of tricky because I feel like a lot of that stuff was like more of the online, I'm trying to think how to like, or I guess there's kind of a common. She kind of embodies a lot of the whole like, oh, I see that you're non-conforming, I'm going to make all these assumptions about you type things. That I think often kind of made me hold things a lot closer to my chest for a while, before I learned to simply not care. But yeah, like the core of it is definitely the like r/trans memes. Like, here's all like, we're going to assume everyone here is trans femme and do all these things, assuming everyone wants these things, and then just kind of get like very, very enthusiastic and all these other things. But like. Like, I even had, like, I remember at one point I was, like, introducing myself to someone. I was like, oh, yeah, I use, like he, they. And they're like, do you really? Or something where they're, like, almost, like, interrogating me. Where it was almost like do you really want he, they? Or do you actually want they, them? Or another thing? And just, like,
oh, my God.
Yeah. And it was something where, like, I could tell it was well-intentioned. But it was, like, it kind of, like, threw me off guard. And it was something where it was almost like, oh, do I have to, like, defend these decisions almost? But I feel like a lot of Naomi's one of those characters, and I think it's something that happens a lot in our games, where we have her little emotional core, and her emotional core is she is the ideal trans big sister. She fucking loves helping people transition. She fucking loves helping people find themselves. And here's a situation where Leo is starting to turn into a girl in front of her. How does she react? And it was funny because, like, I think it's like Zoe writes the scene where it's like, okay, well, Naomi's gonna short circuit, so she like walks outside to start like just screaming, and then Katie's like, well, I have to draw this, and then like does a little doodle of like a little Naomi walking outside, and then screaming and shaking, and I'm like, well, obviously I have to have the screaming fill up the entire like text box, and then also have it overflow off of the text box. So it was so like good. A lot of it is just this like kind of improv of here's this core of this character. We're all familiar with who this type of person is based on these sorts of people who've kind of experienced either on the internet or in real life. And then like how do we riff on that? So right. I would say a lot. Yeah, the emotional core is like from experiences, and then like the individual actions are us playing. It's us playing and having fun.
Yeah. We talked about this a little bit like last week. That I wrote a scene. This is the one like kind of in the most recent Roman kind of sequence where Leo kind of finds themselves falling for Roman. And I think Gonzo said like, crap, another awesome scene for Naomi. And that's the thing of kind of how I write her. Like, I want to be friends with Naomi. I have trouble not giving her all the best lines. But she's just kind of like one transformation visual to the left of where she thinks she is. And that tension is really fun.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I will say that it at its core, I've always felt like she is so well-intentioned. And I think that is what also makes her endearing, even when she is frustrating, because at her core, she's just trying to help in a way that she thinks is potentially the best, and sometimes that's not necessarily always hitting the mark, but she fundamentally wants to help, and I think that is something that is so sweet about her, and so it therefore makes some of the frustrations, which are very realistic, like palpable, and like something that I think a lot of readers can be like, okay, I can see the contrast, and I can see how that's, maybe she's zigging when Leo's zagging, but she has a good heart, and I think that is a really important part of her character too.
When all you have is a trans femme hammer, every problem looks like a trans femme nail.
Yeah, and to be fair to Naomi, like Leo is quacking and flapping a lot like a duck. It's not a bad assumption to make.
Oh man. I also want to say, like, Ash was the first route that I kind of played through, and Ash is a delight, especially when it comes to her own experiments with gender too. And I was really pleasantly surprised to also see that, like, outside the spiky exterior, she definitely has a lot of caring undertones, which was really sweet. And I was curious to know, like, she does, if you go through her companion route, like, she does a little bit of really interesting gender exploration herself. So is that something that could potentially lead to more interesting things in the future? Again, not asking for spoilers, but it was really interesting to see that crop up because I wasn't necessarily expecting it.
Mm-hmm.
There will definitely be future Ash gender exploration adventures.
Amazing.
Along her route.
Yeah, Aiden will return in gold member or whatever.
Ash is interesting.
Hell, Aiden's gonna return.
Ash is interesting in that, like, she has her whole deal figured out, and then she was given magic transformation tea, and then she went, cool. I have plans upon plans upon plans in how I'm going to utilize this. Which is part of why she is a foil to Leo, and that she, like, has these very specific things that she wants to do.
Very much self-actualized.
Yeah.
Yeah. She feels like such a schemer at her core, which I really appreciate.
One of the things I appreciate about Ash the most, I think, is that the way that Zoe writes her is that she does have, like, a caring interior once you get to know her, but she's not saccharine.
Oh, no.
Like, she is still very, like, blunt and real with you, but it's also just like, no, she does care. She's just not gonna be like, oh, Leo, that sort of thing.
She comes off as somebody who's also very thoughtful. If you pay attention to the things she says and not necessarily how she says them. It's like, oh yeah, you think I didn't notice this? Like, yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, I know. It's just because I think a lot of blunt people come off as just arrogant as well. But, the difference between, like, arrogance and confidence is pretty blurred. And if people actually prove that they know what they're talking about, then you can kind of be like, oh, so there's real thought put into this. They're not just fooling themselves. And Ash never came across to me that way. She, she works a job that, can be kind of demanding or boring or whatever. But, she's got a nickname for Leo, and she remembers things about him. And, also, like, I don't know, she, like, referring to her as a schemer didn't really come to mind. It's just like she thinks about things. She's thoughtful, and I like that. I like that about her.
I guess the reason why I almost picked schemer was just because of when I went through her accompany you on the beach. That definitely felt like somewhat of an extended scheme, but not in an ill way. Like, to be clear, I think schemes can also be fun, positive things. And I definitely agree. I think she's very perceptive in, taking note of things and kind of filing them away for future reference, be it helpful or a little bit scheming.
I mean, forcing her boss into a sexy bunny suit was definitely a scheme. And boy, yeah.
Boy, was it the hottest thing ever.
It was very hot.
Finally did a force femme, kind of. Licking it up.
And we're going to get into this in the next update of the VN. It's going to kind of go a little more into kind of Ash's thesis or a whole deal. But for her, all of this is just kind of fun and games. Like, Leo's having this, like, legit existential crisis, and Ash is like, turning into things is fun. Why aren't you having fun? You should be having fun. Here, I'm going to force you to have fun. Which, yeah, we will get into a little bit more, but that's kind of like another way that she contrasts with Leo is that, like, it's all just a bit of a game to her.
Which is fine and good. Like, the tragedy of Leo's character is the tragedy of a lot of characters in so many stories, which is they have this deep problem, whatever it is, however it manifests, but it always leads to lying and hiding things among friends that obviously, like, care a ton about you and will put themselves through all kinds of shit to help, and they're still lying, and I'm just kind of sitting there thinking, this is so fucking stupid. It's so stupid what you're doing. They care about you, but, that's part of the drama. Thankfully, I feel like it's carried through well, so I'm not here, like, gritting my teeth like, okay, this is fucking stupid. But I am sitting there thinking, like, oh, you're making the mistakes again and again.
The tragedy of, why can't they talk to each other?
I mean, yeah. As someone that was, like, a closeted, non-conforming NB, around my, like, queer friend group of, like, lesbians and like trans people, like it's a very real struggle. It's like,
Yeah.
That sucks.
I mean, it was a thing where like I think I like offhandedly mentioned to my wife like, oh, like haha, what if I did mention this? And she's like, why would you not think that they would like accept you? And I was like, yeah.
Well, that depends. Look, to be fair, interpersonally, you never really know how somebody's going to come off. And I don't really care what people say in every single community, especially even in like, LGBTQ plus whatever. There is a good chance that people might just be fucked up towards you. In that case, I would give Leo also some understanding because, like, sure, he's like trying to hide whatever, but I understand that there's a liking for Naomi, but Naomi really puts me off because every single time there's a dismissal of just like, okay, don't worry, you'll figure it out. You'll figure out the answer that I am definitely right about. Really pisses me off, and I can see that happening with any group. Like, no matter how inclusive, no matter how progressive, there's an element somewhere where somebody's going to want to assert a standard. And I think that's fucked up, but I can see why people, even in like places that again seem like obvious and ripe for acceptance and help, they can just kind of be off-putting, like, oh, maybe this won't go so well. Yeah, it sucks to know, but again, it's another thing I appreciate about the game and the story, especially the story. And like, I don't even hate Naomi, and as it was mentioned here, you got trans femme hammer, trans femme nail, and shit like that. But that shit hurts like a hammer does at times. So I appreciate that intricacy too. It's just, I guess I'm also saying, like, it's good that the story makes me feel genuine and not, oh, this story, it makes me angry because this isn't done to my liking, that kind of shit.
Mm-hmm.
I will say it was all in my head, and it is all in Leo's head, and that is also a very common thing. So, but just like it. This sort of arc is one of the most vulnerable things that you can go through. It is you have to put yourself in an extremely vulnerable position, and even around people that support you, it is difficult, it is painful, and it is something where you have to put yourself out there. So it's like the equivalent of like, it's like a self-actualization equivalent of like, asking a person out. It's like, maybe there's all these signs, maybe there's all these things here. You still have to go out on that limb. So it's like, the fact that Leo kind of like, is like trying to like hide these things and all that stuff, especially as like a sudden reaction he didn't like want to occur. Like, I think, it's a very natural reaction.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It makes a lot of sense. I guess the more nuanced thing is like, at least tell Ash. Ash gives a shit. Tell her.
Well, he eventually tells everyone, which I think is good.
Yeah.
And I did want to take some time just to show some love for the boss too, because I mean, first of all, she's very much a MILF. We love this. I'm delayed. She's a big part of the story. I think there's some really interesting stuff, in particular with how she wrestles with being friendly outside of the work context, which I found really enjoyable. Like, the way in which she's trying to navigate that with Leo is honestly really cute. And I was curious to hear a little more about if we'll get to see more of her non-work side of things as like things progress. Leo sure seemed to think so in those routes. And I think there's probably a lot more that will be delved in with her character that I'm really excited for.
Like this, her kind of scenes and route is just kind of a lot about this relationship and navigating it and what it kind of means to both of them. Part of it is slightly that we thought like, oh, it might be interesting to have a kind of relationship in one of these visual novels that is kind of expressly not romantic or sexual, and just kind of exploring some other kind of relationship types with that. I know in our current and previous VNs we've had the sex skips option, but we kind of wanted to have the option this time of having a route where that's not even just in the cards at all, and there's nothing to skip necessarily. I guess Leo's still growing his basangas in any way, so it's not entirely like non-sexual, but for the relationship. We wanted to have that option, and we thought this kind of sort of maternal relationship would be a kind of interesting thing to touch on. And yeah, like I said before, we did have a Wolf MILF sort of plan for Mice T as a DLC that we kind of ported over to here. And I think it's not too much to say that a little bit of her inclusion is a little bit of teasing the audience with this big, sexy, powerful lady, and nope, no touching. She's married. No, that's a lucky man. We're sort of like goading our audience into making a sexy fan out of her because we're not doing a good enough job, almost. Which
I think is hey, listen, there's a story that's being told with her, and I think that's amazing and very respectful. And if the fans want to go crazy, then that's good for them too. Like, we can all win.
I think it is not out of step to say that we have plans for Boss. They just don't happen to involve Leo.
Ah, I see. Okay, well, I think that is a delightful little tidbit for people to look forward to then, because I look forward to seeing where those plans go. That's for sure. But yeah, no, I want to say as well, like, I really feel like the way in which she's kind of navigating the entire situation, particularly just from like a work perspective, I thought was very well done. And I appreciate that she is fully taking her share of responsibility, and also is just trying to do her best to help in this situation that really they couldn't have anticipated. So I felt that the care towards ensuring that kind of dynamic was realistic and also kind went a long way in terms of making her a really likable character, in my opinion.
I think at the beginning, we almost had Boss as sort of a more kind of Mr. Krabs kind of character. When Katie, when you first drew her, she just had a big wad of cash in her hand.
Well, I mean, yeah. So I want to briefly take this opportunity to go back and say that I introduced myself as the character designer for this game. I cannot undercut the fact that Mira definitely helped with that.
Mm-hmm.
I may have made some final decisions, but she was definitely a big help with that. I don't want to take any credit away from her. Her first drawing of Boss was definitely the money grubbing Mr. Krabs stereotype. And that was really delightful, and I sort of kind of pulled that into my design, but then as the story kind of unfolded, she became less and less about being Mr. Krabs and more about being this sort of motherly and caring employer to her two very faithful employees, and yeah. Just sort of got away from us a little bit. We do have a scene during the Monday segment where we sort of try to reel her back in to show her excitement about the success of the event. But
important success of you should keep dressing like a sexy bunny even though you find it kind of embarrassing.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think at the beginning it was as we were kind of theorizing the kind of timeline, it was a funnier joke if this big, tall, bossy lady was stuffing you into a bunny suit, but kind of extended over a full story that might start to feel a little bit kind of manipulative, exploitive. So we kind of reeled back on that a little bit. Boss likes making money, but we made her a little bit more kind of concerned with the well-being of her employees.
She doesn't like making money at their expense.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point.
She just likes minimizing the expenses.
She wanted to maximize her business, less than I think minimizing expenses would have come down to okay, so these are the things we're not going to do. We're going to get austere, but it was instead all right, so stuff isn't doing so good, or rather they could be better. Here's what I think. Do you agree? And yeah, I like that she gave everybody their choices, and and is willing to also work with them in cases of trouble. It's okay, so this works, but here are your problems. I want to address the problems. It's the sensible thing. It's the least I could fucking ask for somebody who's responsible for a business and your employment. Goddamn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess over the course of like Mice Tea and Coffee Business, we're like doing like transformation porn and also kind of like service worker employee porn, where your boss is concerned about your well-being.
Well, that's how you know it's a story. No, there are some there are some bosses and managers who actually give a shit, like an actual shit. I've been lucky enough to at least have two that I remember fondly, who actually tried. So it's good to see. I mean, not everything can be like, I guess, that kind of bleak. So it's good. It's good. And it's not like she's going like super out of her way anyway. It's just, it's like the least that somebody can do if they say they give a shit.
Yeah. I guess one kind of final question, I think we've maybe answered this to some degree, but in Mice Tea, of course, every character's kind of individual story routes also would generally feature particular like sexual themes that were tied to their wants and desires. And so it sounds like that's probably out of play with the boss, but is that a theme that will carry over to Coffee Buns at all, or is that still something that's kind of up in the air?
Mm-hmm. I think in contrast to Mice Tea was very kind of segmented in kind of like, this is the bondage route, this is the hypnosis route, so on. It's a little bit more of a grab bag this time. There's not really kind of necessarily themed. I think, like, you know, the Ash scenes will have a little bit more with kind of like gender play and kind of exploring that kind of stuff. And, you know, Roman is going to kind of lean into the kind of furry transformation and animalistic things, but it's not nearly as, you know, kind of codified and segmented as Mice Tea. But we still hope there's going to be a lot of fun variety in the sex scenes.
Hell yeah. No, that sounds like an excellent plan to me. So awesome. Well, that was kind of all the questions that I had. I don't know if there were any other items you wanted to touch on or shout out in terms of future things people should be on the lookout for in Coffee Buns.
I think we didn't get to hear as much from Mir as I hoped we would. Can I just ask you just directly, like, what sort of like things you were able to include this time around that you were excited about, or just kind of like, you know, new opportunities that you got to do this time and not last time?
That's a good question, because I have an answer for that. So I love the spoilers for Mice Tea, yada yada. I love the Felicia Cafe ending and the world that sets up, and I definitely pushed for, I want to see this world in the sequel. Like, I want to see the opportunities and, like, the effects of kimono tea on, like, the world, or at the very least the community, and, like, all the different like little businesses that will start, you know, because of the tea, and like the powers that it gives you, and just that was definitely something that I was able to do this time around that I wasn't able to do last time, that I really looked forward to and am looking forward to. So be on the lookout for some stuff like that.
Hell yeah. No, I'm looking forward to that. Absolutely. And did you get, were there any specific kind of like scenes that you ended up working on from like an illustration perspective that really stood out in terms of things you enjoyed, or things where you got to highlight specific areas that you were excited about?
Definitely Roman date. Definitely the first Roman date CG. With them underwater, just like this, it's exactly what I wanted to see. Like, yes, people doing things that, you know, they wouldn't be possible without the tea, and just kind of, you know, pushing the envelope there was very, very fun.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and Mira just did a fantastically cute Bonnie mermaid design there. I was really excited that people got to see that finally.
Yeah, it's very unique, which I like.
I can't remember who came up with the idea for Sea Bunny first, though. I know it wasn't me. I just want to give credit.
I would probably... If it wasn't you, I would say Zoe.
Yeah, I think I recall it being me. I'm not positive.
You just wanted to use the sea sluggish right. Pun, didn't you?
I mean, that's the entire reason we were doing these visual novels.
Mm-hmm. Our tea is powered by puns.
It's a great way to be powered, I will say. Awesome. Well, yeah, I don't know if you had any trailing questions for Libra and I don't know, before we wrap up.
I don't have anything.
I know that we've got some things coming up. I just don't know if we want to talk about them or if it'd be fine to plug them here. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was going to say, please plug away.
I guess I'll defer to Zoe and Gunzel on this because I'm not the one probably going to be pulling the trigger on it. There's one thing that's going on right now that we could probably plug.
Oh, yeah. We have our Sylvia plush available on Makeship. If you go to Makeship and search for Sylvia or Sylvia Drake, you'll find her. She's going on for at the time of recording, like a little bit more than 2 weeks left to get her. We're just about at our goal. We're a little past 75%, I think. And then also, we're going to be releasing a comic anthology featuring the skills of Blackshirt Boy, Z, that is not Zach for work, and Cinemimi, a personal friend of our development team. It's going to be little side stories, alternate universe comics featuring the Mice Tea and Coffee Buns cast. Oh, and also, one thing is definitely canonical that we're putting in there, which is the origin of Naomi.
Oh,
basically.
That's awesome. Oh, I'm so excited for that. That's so exciting to hear. I'm really going to be looking forward to that coming out. Awesome.
And yeah, we have a Cross Signals update coming out this month. It's the continuation of the Violet story. And if we cram it in, we'll see. We might have another Coffee Buns update this month with the first Ash date.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, everyone, for coming on. I really enjoyed getting to have this conversation. I'm really grateful that you all made the time for it. I know people can find a lot of Cinnamon Switch stuff on like Patreon and Itch and such, but any specific places people can find yourselves that you want to plug?
I'm on Blue Sky at Zoe S. Fig. That's probably the best place to find me personally.
I'm also on Blue Sky at KDynamo, but also you can find me on Picardo. I stream very often. I'm probably going to be streaming after this podcast, actually.
Nice.
At picardo.tv/KDynamo. Don't forget the silent H. It's there. I finally got, Fur Affinity finally implemented username display name changes, so I can finally be known as K-Dynamo on Fur Affinity after being Fur Dynamo for 10 years. Because 10 years ago I was embarrassed about what if people know that K-Dynamo is a furry. Well, I better make this very transparently oblique alternate username. But
yeah,
no.
Imagine being concerned about people finding out about things you like and are interested in.
Right?
Patreon.com/SimonsSwitch, Patreon.com/TheTransferMistress, and at TheTransferMiss on Blue Sky.
I am simply the Sin Switch work, and also I guess you can find me on Blue Sky as Gunzel. I make like one post a month sometimes.
Amazing.
But they're quality.
If I have an especially potent shower thought, it'll go there.
Amazing. Well, yeah, thank you so much again, everyone, and I hope that everyone who's listening enjoyed listening as much as we did recording. Really excited for this one to go up, and I hope everyone has a good week and keeps an open mind and stays TFy, and I hope I will see some of y'all at FWA, but in the meantime, keep it real.
Yeah, and if you're going to play this game in the dark, just have like your LEDs on or something. Preserve your vision.
I'm a light mode user.
Always
Thanks for having us.